Everybody ready? Okay. Welcome to the Lunenburg Water District Commissioners meeting. Today is April 9th, and we will start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'll get some minutes floating around.
Yep. Mike's got them over here.
Get you, John, on the ball.
Yeah,
huh?
you already got it, yeah. He was here early.
One. He missed.
He was here on time.
He was here on time, and he still missed one.
That's right. Well, I didn't want to take I didn't want to take all the glory from them.
Check that one out, buddy.
You gotta sign them, John. Oh, you already signed them. I signed them on the wrong side?
That's all right, doesn't matter.
What about the annual?
Well, I don't know why yeah.
God, $700 to post in the ledger.
2 weeks. I made a mistake, I did 2 weeks, yeah. Yeah. Mark needs to sign those.
I think.
That's
yeah.
Woody's, isn't it?
Yeah.
That Woody's signature?
Yeah, he looks a lot like mine.
Oh, yeah. I can't even read it. All right, this is done, I guess.
Oh, I'll do it during.
Dan's all set.
Oh, I forgot to put it on there, so I think we need to, the next one, right? Because don't you have to,
I don't think it needs to be.
Oh, yeah.
oh, it doesn't need to be,
I don't think it needs to be an agenda item.
oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion, we accept the meeting minutes from March 26th and the minutes from the annual of March 29th.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye. Wow, that never has happened that quickly.
Hey, we're getting
John's
good.
been, John was he was here
Hey.
taking notes.
Yeah, after 30 years, 28, I should get it. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. We got a lot more learning curve in you. All right, next thing we have is discuss the results of the annual meeting.
Yeah.
I originally kind of had it all together because with the confusion of the moderator position, KP reached out and had said we should appoint, the board should just follow up and just appoint Carol Hatch. So I kind of had that as a combined, and then Carol called me and said, oh, I can't make it to this one, we'll do the next meeting.
Okay.
So
Would she
it was
come
just
to-
kind of, if you guys wanted to review anything, it seemed pretty straightforward. All the articles voted unanimously, but
Okay.
Yeah.
it was on there just in case.
Okay, yeah, if we need to appoint her, then.
I'm gonna put it on for the
whenever it's available.
23rd.
Yeah.
Yep, she's gonna come to the next meeting. He said just to cover your bases. He says it's
Yep.
just a,
Fine.
yep.
So all I got is I was hoping he was here, John Fortune, because when he asked questions, I was kind of direct and, not very open to him, because I was pretty upset at, what took place during the meeting, so I kind of took it to him. And I shouldn't have, because he had a legit concern, and I think it's something we could address. And future meetings, maybe it's something we look at, so. But if he was here, I would apologize to him, because I think I stepped out of line with him, so.
Okay, wouldn't hurt to just reach out and
Yeah,
let him know.
yeah, I kind of expected him to be here, that's why I
Okay.
thought I'd see him. So.
Yeah, and to his question, he brought up that, geez, if we're gonna borrow money, why don't we borrow it from ourselves? Great idea, but I definitely didn't think it was something that we should change on the annual meeting floor, something we should look into and see. We do that article to borrow in anticipation of the revenue. Have we ever borrowed money to pay our bills?
To pay our bills, no.
No.
Okay,
No.
so that's what that article
Yeah.
is about. That article is, when we have an article for annual meeting that allows us to borrow money if we need to in anticipation of the revenue that we're gonna have to pay our operating expenses. We've never had to borrow money to pay those operating expenses, but the article has always been there just in case.
Right.
So, and I understand what Mr. Fortune was asking, if we're gonna borrow money, instead of borrowing money and paying interest,
Yeah.
can we borrow from ourselves? Still something to look into, because we still lose interest by using our own money.
Right.
And we would have to,
Yeah.
I think we should dig into it a little bit, and I would kind of push that to the clerk treasurer to kind of look at and see and come back to us and see how that would work.
Well,
Yeah.
when I talked to him there at the meeting a little bit, I think maybe I relieved a little bit of concern. I think what he was really saying was, why wouldn't we use the money out of the tank fund
Right.
to do that? And I think the answer that I gave him, and maybe even to expand it on a little bit more, is that money that sits in that tank fund is ours to use to repaint the tank, so it's not a massive cost to the, it's $1 million to paint a tank, so we have that money plus, right? It was. But the way that we do that is when we have a tank inspection, the tank report comes back and it'll say, all right, this is good for 2 years. At that point, we can take that money and invest it for that period of 2 years, anticipating that we won't need it. Of course, we do it in a way we could pull it out, but I just don't think it would be highly advantageous to, now that money earns a percentage, I'm making it up, let's say it's 5%, it's around there, 5.5%, something like that. And if we went out to borrow at 8%, once again, I'm making up money, we're talking about a 3% difference on it, but it may not be the best move, but it is something to consider, and I believe that is kind of what he was
Right, and
asking.
you're looking at 8% of what you borrow, and you're looking at 5% of a different number.
Right.
So those numbers, so that's why
Yeah.
my suggestion, just we've never had to do it, but should we need to do it, if the clerk treasurer has
It could
has
just
on
be
her list.
incorporating the language.
Yeah, the article could just say,
Just the
give the
language.
option.
Yes.
borrowing
Yeah.
from
Yep.
or-
Yeah, that's a
Yep.
good idea, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
so
mean that
maybe
it
we
has to
can
be
just-
that way,
maybe
but
we
if
just
if
try-
it so happened that the money was sitting there and we didn't invest it and something came up, there's our option.
Right.
But at least changing the wording to it, which
How
I will
about borrow
absolutely.
or transfer money out of existing funds? So we just run that by.
Yep.
And we can look at that for next year, and
Yep.
that will
Yep.
clean that up.
Yep.
Yeah, from what the attorney said, like you said, we never used it, but they said this on every municipal.
Right,
budget, so
and it
it's not
should
like
be in
That
there.
article.
Yeah.
If something
Yes,
happened
yes.
that we immediately needed to fix something next week, we need to have that ability to act on it.
Right.
Yep.
Anything else on the
No.
annual meeting?
Nope.
You got anything?
No.
Okie dokie, moving on. High water usage bill at 386 Hollis Road. Is that you guys?
Yep.
That's us.
If you want, you can wheel on up or,
She was going to tell you what went on.
okay.
So my assistant Lisa took the first phone call, and I don't know what the date was, if it was after you had gotten your April bill. No, I think it was before you got your bill that you were contacted.
If it was before,
Or
then I
did
wouldn't
you?
have called to question.
That's what I wasn't sure about. If that's what. Okay, so I
It
think
was the day before you called me.
she had gotten
I
her.
called you this, actually, you didn't call me back.
They had called, spoke with Lisa about the high usage. I gave you guys their printout so you could see their history. They are consistently very low minimum usage. And Lisa, from my understanding, what she had explained to me, had spoken with them, kind of walked through a few things, trying to check out if there was leaks, and in the midst of going through things, had discovered that their outside spigot was on. So they had shut it off from there. I was then spoke to the next day. We had spoke, and I reviewed, kind of went through. They had gone and gotten a new read. So unfortunately, this 13,500 is from 12/6 of 24 through March 6th is when we got that read. Is March 6th. So it wasn't until April 2nd, when she had gotten the bill, she called, and the guys went out and got a new read. So there is an additional 6,000 cubic feet that was used on top of the 13 because that was a 1 month from March to April. So I had spoken with her, just kind of ran everything by, tried to explain that, you know, unfortunately we have things happen, and that I would just talk to you guys, let you know that this obviously is out of the ordinary, higher usage. So I didn't know what she wanted to come in and I guess talk with you, see if there's anything we could do. I know we don't. I mentioned that we have never taken abated the water or forgiven the full amount, but that we have worked on payment plans, removing finance charges, any type of demand charges. I know there was some frustration because unfortunately when we get the reads, a flag doesn't come up when the guys go out and drive. It's just on a digital system. Nothing comes up that day. So it's not for days later that the reports come in, and then it wasn't until actually I wrote it down. It was when I talked to PJ. He had gone and left a letter because once we had seen the high usage reports, I want to say it was mid-March, we left a letter. And I understand you said you didn't get the letter. So I spoke to him. He said it was very windy that day. He put it in the mailbox. I don't know what
If you
happened.
put it in the mailbox, is that what he said?
Yes.
It's not supposed to go in the mailbox to begin with, and there was no letter in the mailbox.
I'm just letting you know what I was told. He was concerned that if you
Well,
put.
I asked you, and you said that you didn't know
Yep.
what happened. Now you're saying you didn't know.
Because I spoke to him afterwards. And I asked, do you remember this? Who did you go to? And he said, I remember that day because he just got back from vacation. So he said, I remember it was very windy and I was afraid of putting that on the door that it may not be found. So that's why he put it in the mailbox.
If it was in the mailbox, then I should have gotten it.
I'm just letting you know what was told to me. I don't know.
I'm questioning that. I'm also questioning why a stamp wasn't put on a letter and sent to us with this exorbitant amount of water that was wasted.
Yep, and I know we had talked about that too, and I guess our practice typically has been, we try to reach out to people as soon as possible.
Then
By,
that would have been a phone call that would have come to the house.
I didn't have your phone number on our file. Because I remember talking with
I
Lisa.
have been at that house for maybe 54 years. I have had the same phone number all of that time.
I asked Lisa because I said, I see her phone number in here. And she said, when we talked the day that you had called, she put that in there. So unfortunately, we don't,
You don't have the phone numbers of the people in town. You can't call
not everybody.
anybody,
It's our policy now to get everybody's phone number.
Yeah,
but you don't have it.
But we don't go, we
Your
don't,
Yeah.
if they're already here, we
policy is
don't
to
go
get it,
there.
but you don't have it.
Well, I'm sure
if I
if you run into somebody that doesn't have a phone number, we haven't asked all of our customers to give us their phone number.
Yes.
Correct?
Right.
Okay.
I guess.
What if there were emergency at the house and something terrible had happened? I don't know what. Somebody was in the yard with the hose and passed out, say, or, I don't know.
You called 911.
Who would know if a person lives by themselves and they passed out? And, you know, I didn't know about this bill until I got it. I didn't know what was happening. Had I known a month earlier when it was read, the young woman was very nice and she said, look at your toilet, look downstairs, is there a leak? And then she said, go outside. And when she said to go outside and look at the taps, I thought that was ridiculous. I mean, who in December or January is using their outdoor taps? I went to the back and it was perfectly dry. I walked around to the front of the house and it was leaking. It was flowing.
Did somebody turn it on, or it just was a bad faucet?
I have no idea.
You don't shut your water off in the cellar to keep your
I
spigot
know
from...
now, the young woman
freezing?
that I spoke to initially told me that there's a turn off.
Yeah.
But we've lived there over 50 years and nobody ever told us.
What happened is it could have frozen at one time, and then when it thawed, it started leaking, because
Well, there's no question it was leaking.
we've
I'm
had
not
some cold
contending
days and
that
some
at
warm
all.
days, so that's...
Also, it's in the front of the house. Would a kid have gone by and saw something? I don't know. I mean, in January, February, people aren't really out doing those kinds of things. So in any case, it did happen. What I think is, it would be good if there was a better way of notifying people that they had a problem. I mean, had the faucet in the bathroom been spewing, or there was an unusual amount of water in the basement, we would have known. If I heard something running, I would have known.
See, the trouble is, we're not your landlord. That's up to you to know what's going on inside your house and outside your house. I mean, if you have a leaky window or something, the wind's blowing through, it's not up to us to tell you your wind is blowing through your
So
window.
you're saying it is not up to you to notify us
Yeah.
for 1 month that you know there is exorbitant usage? You knew for 1 month and nobody notified us.
Well, it's only about a week and a half to 2 weeks by the time we had the reports in.
It was read on, you said April, March.
March 6th, but I
March
don't get
3rd,
those,
you told me.
but it wasn't until about 2 weeks later when all those numbers come in and my data's
Where are the numbers? If they're read on March,
they come into, they get read on the iPad, and then they get, if it
and the
takes,
iPad doesn't flag anything?
not until it comes in on my meter reading system, and it's not always, though there are improvements absolutely that we need to make. I will going forward look at the high consumption reports, I guess the day that, well, it takes 24 hours for them to be uploaded, the next day that they come in, but that's not always the reports that I go to. When the guys go out and do the reads, unfortunately, it's not this immediate thing, and I can change my policies.
Well, that's a lot of water that was wasted, a
agree.
tremendous amount of water, and you can see by our bills
Yeah.
that it is always the minimum that we pay. We're not wasteful.
Mhm.
So I'm very concerned that we were not notified in a way that we got the information. And putting it in the mailbox, there should have been a stamp put on a letter, there should have been a phone call, there could have been an email, somebody could have knocked at the door. Most days we're 83 and 84. And in the winter, we're in a lot. So if someone had said, there's a problem, we would have at least from that point on, known, we have to do something about this. We didn't know. There was no sound, no anything. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think that people should be notified that they're wasting water as soon as your group knows.
I would agree with you that there needs to be a look at the process. We have a process and we have a way of notifying people
And
currently.
what is that?
Currently, what is the notification process is if we recognize it to either
To
take
go there.
or leave a
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah, I think mainly because we have always felt that was the most immediate way to reach out, because I had mentioned to you, and I understand we're in town, but I have had multiple people over the past year be like, I mailed my check 2 weeks ago, even though you live in town, the mail gets sent to Boston, then back to Lunenburg. So my fear is if I went to the post office, put that in the mail, it could have been days. So I guess we have always said, okay, well, let's go to the house. And that is
Leave.
something that we can improve on by following up, I guess, every day if we don't get a phone call or an answer within the first day.
Most people, oh, what did the notice say? Did it say to call you?
It's a letter that's like a standard letter that says, we believe you have a leak. And yes, to call,
Well,
and we
of
would,
course, if we had gotten it, we would have called you then.
yeah.
So obviously, the system didn't work for us.
This is the first time I've heard of the system not working, by the way. And I agree that maybe we need to review and look at the system that we currently have. But I would be against us saying, we're gonna email, post, Facebook,
Well, the
you
hard-
know.
the hard part is,
can't-
like you said,
You
we-
have to have a standard way to try to contact people, and it's always been that's been our standard way. And we have not had an issue as of yet.
You have one now.
Okay, I agree that it is something that we need to look at. So, and,
I say, shame on you for not notifying us after being in town all of this time. And what if there was some kind of emergency? I can't think what, but say somebody fainted in the bathtub and the water was running over and they were by themselves. And 1 month, this situation existed for 1 month. Thank you. You'll call me tomorrow? You said that's what you would do, right?
If you weren't gonna be here,
Well,
what
I'm here and
else?
there's no decision and I'm leaving.
What would you like?
Yeah.
I guess
I
that's,
don't know,
but
you
that's,
told me.
I know, I asked you, when I talked to you, I said, what would you like me to ask the commissioners? I said,
All right,
that tip,
what do we do about this? Nothing?
I think we definitely need to look at our policy. I'd like to look at the dates. I'd like to hear from
My dates?
I'd like to hear from other
wanna
board
see the
members.
dates?
Well, we got the dates, she's got all
Well,
the dates.
I have them right here.
I can speak a little bit on this issue. First off, you know, I feel horribly for you, and obviously you're a responsible citizen and would care for your water, and this is very unfortunate. However, us as the water department, it is our, you know, due diligence here to try to make sure everybody is, you know, up to date on all the stuff. And I understand what you're saying, that on the notification process. As soon as we had notification, you gotta understand, when the meters get read, it's digital, it goes onto a meter, like,
Is
someone
there
doesn't.
something on that meter that beeps or stars something that says, holy cow,
Okay,
we're losing all of this water?
so.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah, we don't make the meters.
Right, you gotta understand that, so you've lived there for 53 years, or, you know, you've been in town, you know, that meter, while we do update the meters, you know, when it is time, but that's what that meter, it's a very simple analog device, it's not,
I'm not contending that at all. I'm not saying anything about your meter or anything. I'm
But you're
just saying
saying-
that there was 1 month
well,
when it was read, after it was read, that we didn't know that water was being wasted.
okay, I understand. But I just want you to know, when you say it was read, someone didn't physically look at that exact meter. Don't forget that the number they read on your meter is 5,500, 57,500. It's an arbitrary number. In your cycle, it means something. But even to the layman that would see this thing pop up, they don't have the last meter reader. It's what the meter reads. So they have there's no ill will or not applying themselves when the meter is read. It's what the meter is.
I'm not questioning that.
Well, so when the data comes back to us and it goes through the system and then it populates into, like, and the first time we see, well, we got a problem here, we sent out a guy with a letter that went to the house. So
That's what you're saying.
yeah.
We did not receive that letter. There's a problem with that.
So let's just, on our own.
Like I said, we can
'cause
improve
I'll
on
make
that.
sure we get better
Well,
at this,
yep.
so we'll leave a letter.
If
No
I don't
response,
hear,
let's go.
we'll go the next
We'll
day.
leave more letters.
Yep.
How long are
We'll
you gonna
document.
wait when you leave the letter?
I
And
would
you don't
say,
get a response?
I would say 1 day.
Yeah, 24
1 day should
hours.
be- should
If
be
you drop
enough
it
time
off.
If you haven't responded.
'Cause you don't do this that
Do you have a copy of
often.
that letter that we were supposed to receive?
I probably have a book.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me have a copy then.
let me see.
So I think there's room to improve the process.
agree.
We
We
do
can
have to,
definitely
we do have to understand that the day they are read doesn't necessarily mean the day that somebody
I
populates the
understand, I
data
understand that.
and
I
decides
know what you're
exactly.
saying.
So, you know,
I
the,
know what you're saying.
Okay,
I understand exactly what happened. What I'm saying is, there was a month from when it was read until I got the bill and I called immediately. I would have called 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks before
Had
if
you-
I got that letter and I knew.
I don't
But
know
there
if
was
it's
no
the one we
way-
left, But that's our standard, I'd have to check to see if there was a different one we left, but that's just a standard, excuse me.
And what does
letter.
it say? Does it tell me to call you?
Yes,
Okay, I'll look at that when I get home. Okay,
Okay.
so you'll call me tomorrow then and see if there's anything else that happened. Come on, Howard.
do you, okay.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for listening.
thank you.
Okay, moving on. 9 Cortlandt Circle.
Can we, I apologize, she called, she can't make it till the next time.
Okay.
But if you would like, we can tie the two of these together so that I can follow up with her. I tried to mention to her that a lot of this, we can improve our process, we can do all of this stuff, but that in all these years we have never. The water went through the meter. It's a horrible thing, and to tie it in 9 Cortlandt Circle, same thing. High read.
So on 9 Colton though, we found the high reading, we actually went there, and did we speak to them that day?
Terry heard the water.
Okay.
They weren't home, but Terry went up to put the letter on the door and heard water running and walked
So they
around and saw so it wasn't a spigot, saw an actual hose in their yard running.
So how were they notified?
So they were, I think the letter was left. Terry shut it off immediately once he saw it. They, good, they have a newer radio, we could data log.
But
Unfortunately.
they called right away?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that was the point I was getting.
Yes,
So letter was
sorry.
left, so that our policy does work.
It works.
We left the letter, they called right away.
Yes.
In her case, I mean, a lot of people will grab something, they think it's just junk mail and toss on the counter. I mean, I can't say that's what
And
happened, but.
I specifically spoke with PJ about this, and he said, I remember, because he had just gotten back from vacation. He says, I remember specifically, because he pulled up the house. He says, I remember it. He says, it was so windy that day. My fear was if I just put it on the door, it was going to blow away. So he made the judgment call, I'm going to put it in the mailbox. So, so long story short, to tie these together, I let them know most of the time what you guys have done is if they agree to a payment plan, we will waive finance charges. Unfortunately, 9 Cortlandt Circle is even more. Her bill's $4,500. Her hose was running. I data logged for her. I don't have it with me, but hers ran for over 2.5 months outside.
Is that down at Woodlands, Cortlandt?
Cortlandt Circle, no, that's
Top
up.
off, the loop.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, okay.
I have a couple questions,
okay.
if you don't mind.
No.
So let's just say, all right. So the cycle closes on this case April 1st. Okay, that's when
The bill went out April 1st. We read the meters on March 6th.
And by the time you process the data, you would say it's probably 7 to 10 days
So-
after the read?
Yes, and
Would
that
be my thought. By the time you process the data, get it into bills, realize that she has a higher read than normal,
into my reports, the full report that really, and actually I looked back, she did not show up on the Neptune 360 leak report. It wasn't until, which is the original one, which 9 Cortlandt Circle showed up. So I knew like a week before, because when it's in this program, but then as soon as I take it from Neptune 360 and bring it to NDS, a new report is created, and that's that one that Nate helped us with.
Yes.
That's when this showed up. So that's why hers was even later. I don't know why hers didn't show up. And Cortland's I don't know.
So one of the solutions to this, and let's say you missed it, and then.
I went back
let's-
and
Let's
checked.
make a policy, we set another eyes on it. So
Okay.
either you say, here's my list, check it out.
Yeah.
Or Lisa, here's my list.
Yeah.
What do you see? And what we do is we set up, I think it's different. I did my own little spreadsheet. And I would highest readings to lowest, or lowest to highest. So then you could see the zeros, which means your meter's not working, and then you see the high ones.
But
The
that
high ones
I
aren't easy to do either, because some meters don't carry the zeros, so now you're adding zeros, so
Right.
you're trying to make the things right. So you try and fix the readings so they're all correct, and then you start zipping through like, hey, why is this one so high?
so
But
the-
that's that report that I can't get from 360 until I send it to NDS, and that's when I found hers. So Cortlandt Circle showed up earlier on the NDS
Because it
one
was a leak report.
because it was a leak report. Theirs didn't show up until, which I cannot send it to NDS until I've done a bunch of stuff over here. So that's why it wasn't until mid-March that I realized she had the leak. That's the difference in days, and that's what I was trying to explain to
Is
her.
this something we can have changed? Either give us the raw data like we used to do and generate our own reports. And not,
I can
not go-
work on
so
it.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, the bad thing happened, but I think we can
can improve.
address some of these things to.
Right.
to find
It seems
some-
like her, I don't want to say issue or complaint, but her
Hers is different from Cortlandt Circle.
right. Hers is that she's acknowledging that something was wrong, but her,
Yeah.
I think her problem is with that 6,000
Is the month after.
Right.
That communication after the fact, definitely. The other thing, I mean, you've talked about monthly billing before. You know, I don't know if that would help us out, but I also think that that's something we have to probably get resident input, and unless there's huge savings. It would definitely help us out. You know, she would see her water bill would jump in 30
Yeah.
days versus,
Well, even
3
if we
months.
don't though, I've talked to the guys about even just going and doing the reads for now, monthly. I don't have to bill, but I can
All right.
at least go out and do reads.
it's still,
We can make improvements.
How long does
either.
it take to do a read for the entire town?
3 hours, 4 hours?
For one person, 3 to 4 hours?
So I think we just go out every month.
Well, I mean, so. All right. On the water usage side, that sounds like a great idea. But the reality is, today's a real day for everybody. Okay?
Yeah.
Water main break,
Yeah.
equipment to fix. I mean, we're not sitting around here goofing off a lot. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
like, there's always, in the downtime that we have from, let's say, doing the functional job of Lunenburg Water Department, there's a pile over here that the truck that just took the dump body on him. You can go down the list. There's small engine repair. There's, you know, that I feel like the guys do a pretty good job in their off time to occupy doing this. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but I think there's the whole picture here is that I don't want to add man hours to tasks that can we. I don't know, Fran, and you guys are here every day, but I don't want to like keep. Oh, you got to do this, and this, and eventually this is where employees are like, I'm sorry, man, I don't want to work anymore because it's like nonstop. I'm behind the 8 ball every day of my life.
Well, this is something that we talked about too, is getting those towers up
Yes.
and putting the radios, and I could get real-time data every day.
So
So if she had a new radio and we had that up and her water was continually running for
right.
days, it
So
could send me alerts.
Do we need to put new meters on to make that happen?
Well, it will still read all the meters.
Oh, I see what you're saying. This radio is
But it
like
won't-
It's
instead
gonna
of
be on a tower,
instead of
sending
driving
sig-
by with the
Yes.
truck going blip 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 blip.
Yeah, it's gonna read it
Oh,
every,
okay. Copy.
yeah.
So we've been talking, and
Yeah.
actually with the radio upgrade, I'm swapping one of the antennas on the Sunny Hill tank to put up a antenna to read the meters.
Yep.
So when the time does come,
Yeah.
there's an antenna cable right in the building.
So we are working on
Okay.
this, where it's, and I tried
And
to
I'm sure-
express that to her as
I'm
well.
sure the
that, you know,
technology
there's-
will come along that you could almost get real-time data every day.
Yeah.
And if something's wrong with usage,
To
I'm sure the
flag.
program will just like spit out
I mean,
whatever the address
Yep.
is, and then, you know, we can start from there and try to catch the leaks more frequently. Because
I got an
it's
idea.
not happy. It's not a good thing when you get these bills. I've gotten
No.
one of them before, and you know, I realize it's my responsibility after the meter.
I got an idea. You know, you can buy a thing about this big that goes in the feed line after the meter. And if the water runs through that device for so many minutes or so many hours without it being turned on and off, it automatically shuts the water off. Now, you know, from now on, all these new houses make it mandatory
putting
to
it in.
install this thing in the line.
So the smallest.
It's better to pay $300 for a
Yeah.
little meter device that shuts the water off than pay $1,100 for water that you didn't use.
No,
Now that is something you can get because I've seen them.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, it goes through right after the
I put one
meter.
off in my shower so when my daughter takes it. For
you've been in there too long.
You put, like I say, you put it on the main feed line after in the 1-inch line or whatever 3/4 coming in after the meter, and it just after there's so much free flow going and nobody changes the amount of water or shuts it on or off, it shuts the water off.
So my concern is for us to go to spend the whatever hours to go read the meters. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
a few hours.
But-
Then it comes back to the office people.
Right,
They're
it's-
looking at 2,500 of these things.
so-
So when you start, you're looking
That's-
at 500, not now.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not, I know.
I understand that our current process it works. We're always looking to make improvements, but 10, 15, 20 years ago, this technology wasn't there at all. And it was from the meter maid going to physically reading the meter and writing it down to where we are now. At the end of the day, the ultimate responsibility is on the user. We will do everything we can to try to help people conserve and everything like that, but we can try to make policy adjustments to the best of our ability here, but like we were talking about, John, there, that's a great idea, but we can't go put that on 2,500 houses. And I understand the position they're in completely, where they've been a customer here for 50 years. Their phone number's not on file because when they signed up 50 years ago, that wasn't the policy. It is now. So to try to go and like re-grandfather everything in, it's very difficult because let's be honest, individuals like that probably don't come here unless there's a problem. So it's hard for us to sit here and be reactive to this, where every situation, we've sat through this before, and it comes from a variety of reasons why their water was broken. So we can sit there and try to make the best efforts to be efficient, but to do a blanket policy, it's almost impossible.
See, I don't, I mean, there's a dozen things in your house that can happen. That's gonna, like you can leave the refrigerator door open in your house, your electricity bill's gonna go up. The electric company doesn't call up and say, hey, ma'am, your refrigerator door is open. I mean, it's, we're not, I don't think we're gonna get into, at least I don't hope not, get into the babysitting business of, I mean, I wanna help these people out too as much as anybody.
I don't want
But
to
I mean,
waste
they gotta
water.
take responsibility for their own property. And I think that faucet froze and split open, and when it got warm one of those days back then, it thawed and the water came
Right.
on.
Yeah,
Yep.
who knows?
That, I mean, how else, unless somebody turned it on, it was, kids were fooling around or something, but I don't.
I mean, like I said, we will do our due diligence, and I really feel that we do. Is that when these things get flagged, we let people know. And like in this case, it really just sucks that the communication didn't work
Yeah.
with PJ going out there. But
yeah.
I will say this. For a policy, maybe what we can do is if we do go to make contact at a house and there is no response or nothing back, yes,
go
we should try it
continually.
daily until
Yeah.
something's there. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Okay.
Yep, we can absolutely do
That
that.
we can do.
Yep.
But I think we should, give them devices, just some kind of a look at it. Maybe just notify these people in town on the next bill or something. You can buy a device that will shut your water off.
That's up to, if you find it, that'd be great, maybe we can post it on our website.
Yeah,
They
here's
can
a
hire their-
great-
They can hire their plumber to
Right.
put
Yeah.
it in.
Yeah, I
because
mean,
when
it's up to them
when
to
that-
put one in,
When
not
that
up to
device
us.
activates and you have 10 of them activated in town, I don't think we need our guys doing additional stuff.
No, I
So
understand
they
that.
would have to
That's-
call a plumber and figure
Yeah,
that
it's
out.
after-
No, that's
what's
what
gonna-
I'm getting at. It's
Yeah.
nothing to do with us.
Just,
But
hey,
like I
here's
say,
a-
if I was a homeowner and I was worried about a water problem down the road, even 20 years from now,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather spend a couple $100 on some kind of device than $1,100 or $1,200 on a water bill.
But you know who they're gonna call as soon as the water shuts off anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we're not gonna know, so we're gonna go there.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's why we're not turning into babysitters. They gotta take responsibility for their property.
Yeah.
But I think we should maybe, I don't know what we can do. We got 3 of these.
The only thing that I
Yeah.
can suggest, and we've done this before, is we've dropped down to the single tier, not the
Yep.
block rate.
Yeah,
I-
because what we
And I
do for
agree
these,
with it, Christie, if she wants to set up, if anybody wants to set up a payment plan,
We can waive
as
the
long as they
finance
stick
charge.
to the payment plan.
Yes.
I feel bad. It's an unforeseen expense for people, and
Yep.
if we can help them out anyway,
see, now, we also gotta consider, we got 3 of these now we're working on. We're trying to help these people.
Yep,
Whatever we do for one, we're gonna,
yeah, well, we're
Yeah.
covering, if we go to the block rate, we're covering our expenses.
okay, yeah,
Right,
I
if we-
understand that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
block rates are the intent is to, conserve.
Right.
The
Yeah.
intent is for conservation, right, and when you have something like this that obviously they were unaware of, and it's not that they weren't trying to conserve water, cause if you look historically.
Yeah.
if
Oh,
they-
my goodness, yeah.
You know, if they
Oh, yeah.
historically had been using a lot more and been at different tiers, then that, to me, might be a different story, and it'd still be a case by case, but I'd be in favor in this instance here, where they minimal users, then I would, it's not so much conservation, it's the fact that they, they overuse water without knowing. I would be in favor on this one, because of that history, to go to the first block rate, what is that, tier one?
Yeah.
And I think they faithfully paid their water
Right.
bill for
Oh,
the
yeah.
last 50
Right,
years.
and if there's
Yeah.
somebody, if this was a different scenario where there was higher usage and they were more at the block two, then it might be, I might have a different feeling on it,
Yeah.
but in this instance, I'm okay with going to the single tier because they have such a lengthy history of not using any water.
Are you okay, with 9 Cortland, where we know that it was the hose outside?
What is
I
their,
mean-
what is their typical use, like, so that's why we look at each one of these.
Yeah, if you give me a second.
So-
I know I'm pulling around,
No,
but
no,
I
no,
just,
no.
I'm trying
No,
to like be like, I think this is a standard thing, like, I know that they wanna come in here, and the hard part is I know that this is our policy, but they still wanna come in, so I try to be proactive in telling them, like, you can come in, but I'm letting you know, like, we'll work with you, do a payment plan, no finance
Yeah.
charges, you know what I mean?
Geez, they had
We
a-
know we have that.
Yeah.
They
But I
had a-
think as far as the dropping the tier rate, if we're gonna do that, I think that's on the individual and,
Okay.
and how we look at it, each individual
So-
account.
I'll run,
I heard what you said.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with it, but even this individual that just came in now didn't ask us or tell us what they wanted. They were upset about everything, but there was no, this is what I would like, an abatement, a drop in price, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that right there is, to me, is like, all right, well, I mean, I understand this is a shock and everything, but like, you need to come in here with a deliverable of like what you're expecting. And I understand it's difficult, but the fact of the matter is like it costs us money to make water. Like we're like a not-for-profit company here. Like when this water goes away, it didn't show up for free. So we have to be careful of how we do this because the reality is that when all these things happen, if we're too lenient about it, we're basically passing the cost on to every other customer that has done their job, paid their bill, and used their water. Because eventually this is going to catch up to us where our water usage is going to be here, but our revenue coming in for it is that. And so in a case like this, where, my goodness, I mean, I feel that is 19,000 cubic feet. Is that what these meters are? The readings?
yeah, with the 6.
Okay.
Yeah, with the 6, yeah.
Versus an average read of 600.
Yeah.
So just do the math there. That's like 2 years of water revenue that we just can't negate or you know what I'm saying. I want to help people out, but at the same time, this is as inconvenient as them. It costs us money too. You know,
Well,
so
just so you know, I did a hypothetical by putting it down to the lowest tier, and it's only $170 taken off. It's not like it's a huge dollar.
I didn't even see what's I didn't see their dollar. Oh, is it 1172? Is that the dollar?
1172.80.
Yeah.
So if I took off those other tiers
Yeah.
that went up to, it would take off $170. So we'll go
But
down
that-
to
but that's
like
at-
1,000.
All right, but
instead
that's
of-
at the 13,000, not the 19,000, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, the next one would only be their next bill is going to be
Sure.
reflecting of that.
Right.
But yes.
Was this hose down in Cortland out in the front yard? Do you know? Or?
I don't think it matters.
Don't remember.
Well, it matters to
It
me
does.
because
I-
what I'm saying is we haven't had that much snow this year. I mean, if
Yeah.
you got a hose that's running for 2 weeks out on
Well-
your front lawn, you're sure.
Her as well. She wasn't home that often. She said.
And again, I agree with the chair.
Yeah.
People have to take a certain amount of responsibility after the meter. We're responsible to the meter. In this case with this couple that came in, I look at it as it's, we do the block rates for conservation. They weren't doing it, there wasn't anything, I think they were doing maliciously to use excessive water. It's not a huge savings, for somebody to go to a different tier, but it's at least something.
Something.
And at a tier one, we still cover a lot of our expenses on it.
Are we gonna decide what we're gonna do here now so she can?
I think we
she'd
should.
like to hear from me
I-
tomorrow.
I like to
I
decide
understand
on
what
this
I'm
one.
saying.
I don't wanna decide on Cortland Circle till they.
No, that's
they
I don't
come
either.
in, they can
Yeah,
come
I
in.
agree.
That's
I'd
fine.
like to decide what we're
That's
gonna
fine.
do with these.
So-
these
All right, so
folks.
on the matter of 386 Hollis Road, are we in agreement to put this down to a tier 1?
I would make a motion that we go to a tier one, notify the resident that we are looking at our policy on how we notify people. This is like one of the first instances that we've ever had, and we've been using this policy for whatever number of years. So we will definitely look into how we do that. And unfortunately, there's not much we can do for the leak detection, or the process is what the process is right now.
And what about,
Hold on, was that a motion? 'Cause
That's
that was a
well,
long one.
as far as the bill, I would make a motion, we drop it to a tier one, if they wanna do a plan, that they could do it interest-free, as long as they stick to the payment plan.
all right, that's my thought was the interest, that's what I
Yep.
wanted to say.
Oh, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. I'm
Okay.
just trying to do it
I will,
efficient for you
yep,
two.
I will follow
Okay.
up tomorrow.
John, second the motion.
Yes.
I second the motion.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there's nothing.
Right,
The
and
system is what the system is, and we can only.
And believe me,
try
I
to
talk
look at
to,
it.
other people in water departments, like, this is,
They're not as lenient as we
they are not as,
No, you pay it and you like it, you know?
as a matter of fact, I mean, they won't do anything with interest, nothing.
Yeah.
There's your bill,
Yep.
so, like I said, I have, want to be one with our community, and I feel for them, but like, at the end of the day, while we sit here and go through this, there's 2,500 other people that will have to absorb this, and it's not really fair to them, so,
Okay.
okay, all right. We're good with that,
We're
right?
good.
Okay. Discuss and vote approve, for Waterworth Utility Rate Management. All righty,
That one's all you.
sorry, John. So I
okay.
just had a Zoom call yesterday with Waterworth. I'm 100% in favor of that program. We sat down for 20, 30 minutes. She really ran through everything they did. One of the things I really liked is, being able to forecast your budget, rate increases in, and factoring in PFAS plant or whatever it may be. But even more, one of the things I really liked is that, you could plug these numbers, and let's say we did 3%, a 3% raise, and you can kind of see where you're going. But that didn't quite, we're going to need to do a 7% to do this. But then maybe it's a year where we have a 2.5 override in Lunenburg, and we want to give the citizens
change
a
the
reprieve. We can
dates.
move that around a little bit to offset that, to still get it at the end. So I think there's a couple of good things about the system that I like. Also, I think it'll give us here, you two, just some more, bird's eye view of the management of the monies and how it goes and whatnot. So I was definitely a favorite. One of the questions I really had is that, yes, if it comes to a PFAS treatment plant where we need to present to the public, they are 100% on board on helping us with that, setting up, we need to give them the raw data, but they can, maybe like we've talked
Full
about.
reports.
Yeah.
With
Give
graphs.
it a couple different COAs that we want to do for X, Y, and Z, put it up on the board. And they actually had an example of one in Ohio or something like
Yeah.
that, and they showed, so, yes, I'm all in favor of that.
When do we start to see that we're gonna utilize it? Is this a right-of-way thing to start to build?
Absolutely, because you know how like every year we do our annual budget and we just kind of go off last year's and we do it that way. I think this way would give us a great, more vision of 10, 20 years
Yeah.
to see, hey, if we stay on this course of increasing and we adjust it for inflation and even some of that, if you want to do projects, they had it in there. Like if we don't do it this year and it's a 15%, 2 years, it's going to be this. It was a great to show that. So I think we could take our annual budget that we do with all those line items, plug them into this, and see where they look like. And then we can sit here and be like, all right, if we keep increasing office supplies, it doesn't need to go that high.
Yeah.
We can keep it here. But it looks like chemicals or whatever, we may need to start pulling that up a little because I don't think we're going to, in 5 years, be covering all that.
Yeah.
So,
It was
yes.
definitely a multifaceted
Right,
program
yeah.
of not just
And
Yeah.
it
a rate
was simple
study.
for-
It was,
not
yeah.
pick on you, John, but you could look at it and see, hey, here's our revenue, here's our expenses, you see the spike coming up. And, but the revenue's here, so you could clearly just look at it and say, hey, we got an issue right here.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a
You go into
problem.
it where Woody was saying you can do your increases, and then you can see it, there's your revenue, then your projected revenue, so you can actually see it and meet that, so you can do a legit
Right.
projection.
Yeah.
And like I say, it was nice to be able to plug in the numbers, 3% this year, 2.5% 5 years later, or whatever. Like, You know, we don't do that now because we just don't have we were doing fine without it. But like, you
Yeah.
know, I feel like not, we don't wing it, but like year to year,
Yeah.
we make the budget and that. This will give us a little more projection. And then, you know, maybe that'll help us make decisions on capital improvements, water main replacements, et cetera. If we saw like, hey, you know what? This fund's growing. I know that in 4 years, we want to do this job. If we keep this, when this comes in and it, you know, let's say it's a $4 million project, we may only need to borrow 1 million, and
We got something to go by.
right. And I think on a day-to-day operation of them just taking those numbers, it may help.
Does, I'm thinking about the chemical increases and stuff. Does the ultraviolet light take care of some of the problems that we're taking care of with the chemicals? Or is that a completely different deal?
Well, like Keating's, we have the ultraviolet light, which is a
Bacteria.
biological destroyer. So anything biological, it kills.
So ultraviolet light would do that.
It
Yeah,
does.
so that kills the bacteria and everything. So
Right.
at Keating's, we have a whole chlorine setup, but it's not active. It's only if something happened.
Right, so what I'm getting at is if we put an ultraviolet light down Lancaster Avenue, would that lower our chemical use?
Just for chlorine.
Just for chlorine, so it's not a,
Iron manganese, it doesn't do anything with that. It's
Correct.
just the
So
byproduct.
when we build a treatment plant, no matter where it is, there's UV light going in it.
Yeah.
When we redo the Chase Road tank paint job, we're doing
yeah,
UV
all
light.
right. But I'm
The
just
bigger the
thinking,
UV
if,
lights.
if it killed a bunch of other stuff that we're using chemicals for, we could cut back on the chemicals, install the ultraviolet light.
No, the only thing I saw was the UV light that we have at Keating's. They have a off, different kind of setup for it, for PFAS, but it was only on the backwash of the PFAS, nothing for the system wide. So,
That's another thing, it doesn't do anything for PFAS,
no, nothing does.
nothing does.
Other than all that.
Wouldn't
so
that
yeah.
be great? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, throw a
Oh,
light on it
Throw
and
a
kill
light on it
everything.
and kill it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
John,
Well, this
invent
is,
that.
if one of you wanted to make a motion.
Oh,
Good shot,
why doesn't the chair make a motion?
Wow.
Alright.
Okay.
you're the motion man.
I'm
Can't.
the motion man. I would make a motion that we go, are we gonna go with a 1-year annual
Oh, yeah.
subscription
Yeah,
to
I think,
start?
That's what
let's
we
do a
talked
1 year.
And are they gonna give us a discount if we renew?
It would probably start a whole new one next year if we looked at it again and we said this has been
Then you
great, that
decide,
would
do you
be.
wanna do
Yeah.
a 3?
Yeah, we'll do 3,
Yeah.
5,
But then
whatever.
if we do the 3, then we could budget for it.
Yes.
So this year we
Right.
got the
Yep.
1
Yep.
year, just cause we can stick it in the budget.
So a 1-year annual subscription to Waterworth, which is a long-term financial model assessment replacement schedule, scenario exploration, rate, and design.
Now, does that go when we, I mean, is it a fiscal year, is it a calendar year, does it go from the
Probably
day
from
we
when-
start?
Probably
to the-
tomorrow if I called her.
You're right,
it
yeah.
would.
Call
Okay,
tomorrow,
so it'd be this
tomorrow to
time
tomorrow
next year then,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, which,
Okay, all
Yep.
right.
You
Not that
second
it
it?
matters, I'm just, of
You gonna second that motion, John?
course.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
alright,
They come get all the data.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the other thing, where it's
Now,
not,
what's that company,
it's called
Waterworth.
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 okay,
That was another big factor too. It's not these guys spending a whole bunch of time,
Yep.
you know, dumping the stuff over there. Boy,
Yeah.
you guys are beating on me here. All right, yeah, commissioner, superintendent, clerk, treasurer, additions.
Think about it.
Nothing. Sorry.
Geez, so every time, this year we reorganize the board.
Oh yeah, that's my
and
next.
I would make a motion that we leave the board organized as it is.
second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations,
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
you're the best.
I will comment on this after the meeting.
Won't do you any good.
Yeah, you guys really snuck. Did you get?
Hey, we're
That's
good
what
at,
you get for being late.
we've been doing this for a while.
There was no collusion.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, I'm
just
filing a
kidding.
complaint.
But at the next meeting, we have to actually put it on the agenda to reappoint everybody.
Oh, we
Ah.
should do everybody, alright.
All right, good
Yeah.
time.
So you got, yeah.
That was
Just them or everybody?
Well, they've gotta reappoint all of us,
Alright.
the employees.
Yeah, and then if we can,
They do
just
Carol,
tie
too.
that in with,
Carolyn.
Carol.
yeah.
Yep.
So the reports we were talking about earlier, I've had time to dwell on, and I'd like to set something up this summer where maybe we try to see, cause the guy running the truck doesn't see that, you know, and he doesn't even see it
So
after
just so
half the
you,
time.
we need to, alright, so what we're discussing is that there was a large fire in Shirley. And there was a hydrant used on Mass Ave near 790 Mass Ave, and they were filling tanker trucks to haul to the fire. So we were starting to get a lot of calls. We got low pressure relief valves blowing on hot water heaters. And so when we got those, and that was near the end of the day, I'm like, I gotta see what's going on. So I went down there, and they were all done. They were picking up. So I didn't get to see any of the operation, but we had our guys there, and they didn't say anything. It was like crazy. So I didn't know any of this. So I questioned this today because we had a broken water main on a duct line main, which is incredible. You don't break duct line mains, and this blew a hole in it. So to me, it was from the fire. Can I 100% prove that? No, but to me, I'm pretty confident it was. So then I started looking at pressure gauges that we have at Keating's. So the pressure at Keating's was spikes of 20 psi, and that's 7.5 miles away. So what was the pressure spike local? We don't know that.
Right.
But to me, it was much higher than 20 psi. To me, when we flush hydrants, I don't want to see a 2 or 3 pound increase when we close that hydrant.
So the idea is, we're trying to help prevent, from the fire side, we're trying to help prevent issues with the water infrastructure. So, you know, it's good to have the communication here, but the guys there didn't see this, don't know what's going on in what's happening with the pressure relief valves and so forth. I think trying to have somebody from the water district there, when we have a call, which, you know, we did have somebody there, seeing this data here, the idea is, when it comes out of a hydrant, whenever possible, we're supposed to tie it to a truck, and then through that truck, and the truck is supposed to alleviate that. So whether it was a operator error, truck error, or what it is, I don't know until we maybe try to recreate this at some point and see if we do everything that we're supposed to, does it still create a spike?
Okay.
Does anybody ever check the pressure relief valves in those trucks?
I think the pumps are tested. I'd have to check to see, as part of the pump test, if they check the valves. I know they actuate them. They're supposed to be able to dial them in, and there's a light on the valve. Once you set your pressure, you crank that valve, and it's supposed to take the pressure and not give you that much of a variance.
supposed to dump it out.
Supposed to dump it
So
out the
it's-
bottom of the truck, but I don't know what the variance is on that valve and how much it really takes. So when it dumps it out of the truck, does it allow some to bypass, which would still create a back pressure, until we, try to recreate it and maybe,
So it's a very simple thing to regulate the pressure valve.
if the valve works and the operator uses it the way that we're supposed to use it, yes, all
Now,
things
you guys-
considered.
You got somebody over there that knows how to do that? I mean,
They
They
train,
all,
because when
we
I
all,
was on
we
the
all,
fire
we all
department,
train, we all
Okay.
train on it, they all know to use the pressure relief valve. How much of that is squeaking by it, how accurate the valve is compared to the
well,
gauges.
that's what I'm getting. How
They-
do
we
you, how
don't-
do you know
we
what
don't-
you're setting in that? I mean, is there a,
It's usually get it to bypass, so it's dumping on the ground and you just close it
Right.
and it stops.
so you gotta set it under water use?
Yes. 'cause
Yes.
You
it
just
changes
can't go to the
No,
truck and,
the truck has to be flowing water to set
okay.
it.
So some
So there's
towns-
I've never seen it, and it's not on any of our apparatus, where you can actually set it to a pressure. You can't dial in like
Yeah.
200
Yeah, that would be
pounds or
high
whatever
tech,
it is.
yeah.
Well, how do you know what it is?
The gauges on the truck, which are as accurate as the gauges are on a truck. And I'm not saying they're inaccurate,
They're pretty good.
but once you set it, you dial this down, and then when the valve actuates, it lights up. So
And that
then,
shows you the
then you're
pressure.
supposed to, then the training is that you crank a little bit above that, because you wanna still be able to maintain the pressure that you're flowing out of that truck.
All right, I'm just asking,
So
I don't know
it's-
anything about it.
So,
So just trying to work together departmentally so that we can, do the best for both departments.
Sure.
You can't always, in a perfect world, have a truck on
Well,
the hydrant.
we've talked about
and
this.
We can't control who.
Right. We've
Tag
talked
line.
about this before. This is
Yeah.
not the first time this has come up. We, I guess, need to take the lead on this and implement something. Either we obviously I want to work with the fire department on this, but this graph is doesn't lie, you know. So we need to find a way to either have a meeting with the fire chief, however he would like to approach this, but we need to have some resolve on this because. Thank God the Mass Ave water main was done because that thing would have blown in six pieces. You know what I'm
They
saying?
wouldn't have any water.
Right.
They would, they're-
The whole
Right, and then you wouldn't have had. I mean,
would have been out.
you know, so
Most of it.
I'd like to try to find a way to address this, and I'm open to suggestions, but we can't just keep talking about it.
Yep.
We need to.
So, on this note, this happened on Sunday as
Yep.
well. So Sunday, they did
Yep.
a spike. When the fire alarms start going off at the school,
Yep.
that tell, right, boom, they did something, created a water hammer.
We had 800 feet of line, 4-inch line that filled up.
Yeah.
Where
And-
was that
And the
break?
speed in which it filled up, you don't, when you're turning it on at the hydrant, you don't even see the truck that you're filling. So to see how fast you're really turning it on.
I was always taught walking speed.
Yes, but you're filling here,
But
the
you
hose
see-
is
you
filling
see the
up.
hose filling.
Okay.
They go nice and slow. Anyway, so I called the fire chief.
Yep.
And I said, we need to address this. If we don't, you're not gonna have any water. You are going to blow up the water main and you have nothing. And he says, I understand.
Yeah,
And I said, let's go to one you do training on this. And I said, we'll go there, we'll stick gauges on the hydrant out front, and we'll watch what you do. And we'll do the whole process. Hey, we're gonna turn on the hydrant. Boom, watch the gauge.
Okay.
All bad, right away. Because I've watched them. They spin the hydrant as fast as can, and that's you're supposed to fill the hydrant because you got to get the air out, and then you do your thing.
Okay.
So
so the hydrant on Lancaster Ave was a past water district employee that turned that hydrant on. So he knows how to turn a hydrant on.
We know that one.
Do you have to
So-
do that test from a hydrant, or can you do it at the lake?
What?
Pump the water through the valve? Can you pump it out of the lake, or does it have to be pressure from the hydrant?
No, the whole point
No,
is
the whole idea is
yeah,
to
it's the
protect
pressure-
the domestic system.
Well, all right. So the conversation you
We
have
can
with the
use
fire
the
chief,
valve,
we can
that's
talk
fine.
about this. You know,
Yeah.
like we understand this policies and how to do this, but we really need to, all of us, you guys, please, we need to do this because what we did today was completely a waste of a day. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'll give you the pipe. I mean, it's
So what you got to realize is, for example, Rolling Acres never ever had broken water mains until an out of town was filling tanker trucks at Lancaster and Page Street. So when they were doing that, they blew up the water main twice. Two spots blew apart. So since that day, that's on our schedule to replace that water main. So not only did this blow the main on Peninsula Drive, it affected the whole water system. So it could have a pipe that's
Right.
ready to break. It didn't break right then.
Next
But-
week.
But it's ready to go.
and I think it's
Well, some
important
of our
to.
stuff is aging too.
Okay, you know what? You're right. Our system is aging, but guess what? That's what it is.
And it's a high-pressure
It's
system
going to
that
be
isn't
like this at all
typical.
times. So
Yes, so you need to
Right.
address it even more.
Yeah,
right,
I
you know.
agree.
So what are we gonna do?
I say, just like I said with Chief, he agrees.
Okay.
They'll do a training. We'll go there. Maybe we all go. You guys want to go?
Yeah, I
Let's see
want to
what's
go. I
going
want
on.
to see how this
Okay.
Watch
operates.
pressure gauges, and I just told the guys today. I call them tattletale ones.
Yeah.
You stick the pressure gauge on. There's a little red needle on it. So if the pressure surges,
Yeah.
the needle stays there.
Yeah.
So that he can't.
Okay. So before the next meeting, will you get with the fire chief and
Certainly.
Trying to coordinate the training. It's just talking to him about when
Right.
when we do it. But yeah,
You can do that right at the fire station. Then.
you can.
So
I don't know
hydrant-
if sometimes doing it from that location every time. I don't know if we should be picking a different location.
To me,
does it
I
really
like
matter?
that only because you have the hydrant out front and the hydrant they're using. So we need to watch the one with the water that feeds
Right.
it. So if we did like School Street, that would be okay because you get the hydrant at Mass Ave and then you get the hydrant near where the old school was.
Yeah, so wherever you think, and then, yeah, we can simulate either filling tankers or using large amounts of water. And, again, the trucks, it's not something they go through, they actuate this stuff, there are truck checks. You could go a year without using a pump.
Once again, I'm not
So-
trying to point blame
Nope.
here. It just obviously it just this can't keep happening every time there's a fire
Well,
because
it's crucial to us at the fires,
You know.
that we have water, and then, yes,
Right.
after the fact, if you know, the operation is causing broken mains, that's
Right.
not a good thing.
I'm sure you got more than one truck over there with this system in it,
Yeah,
the valve.
they all have the same system.
How many you got?
Every Class A pump has that system, so 1, 2, 3, 4.
They've been there forever, so.
Yeah, but I'm saying you're gonna have to check them all.
yeah.
Well, if it means, maybe that's something even on the fire end, I don't know what the policy or procedure is on, you know, they actuate the pumps, but, you know, checking that stuff, I don't know if that's part of the, pump test every year. The chief would know more about all of that, and knowing exactly what gets checked on a truck, how often this part that could save us gets checked, and how effective that part is. It may be that we really have to dial in our procedure, but we're gonna know that in Lunenburg. And it doesn't mean that we're gonna do we're not the ones tapping the hydrant every time.
Okay, so this just went out, what was it, last week? Mass Waterworks. did a
Oh, yeah.
post Saying
At
that a lot of water departments start complaining about fire departments blowing up their water mains.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is anybody else noticing this? So she's out putting feelers out.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure
it-
you would.
it-
I mean, and I'm not trying to.
I didn't say a word,
Right.
I didn't say anything, but I'm
No,
definitely
there-
gonna respond, that we need
There
to
is a
address
couple,
this.
there is a couple
Yeah.
that have said, I've noticed, yep.
So-
You think the builders of these trucks would be able to put in a different
I
system?
don't think it's the trucks, I think it's the training of the people.
Yeah,
You know, so like I'm closing the water off we just filled a 3,000 gallon tanker truck in 2 minutes. You gotta realize, yeah, I was flowing a ton of water.
yeah.
I better take, it took 2 minutes to fill the truck, I should take 6 minutes to close that valve.
Yeah, that,
Not seconds. It
but
should
then
be
your
a
6
minute.
minutes while the truck is waiting to go.
Well, it's
down,
either
so-
6 minutes or
So you blow up the water main.
48 hours for
Yeah.
us to fix it. You know, I mean, once again, and I understand all aspects because at that time, adrenaline's pumping. We got to move. Is that's what you're trained to do? It's just we need to sit down and try to come up with some way just to try to avoid this in the future.
Try, yep. exactly.
Whatever stops this graph from happening again, I'm for it. I don't care how we do it, but you know,
Yeah, so
so
I spoke to the
Okay.
chief, he's all for it,
All right,
let's see.
let's-
I said,
All right,
we
let's do
we
it
need
then.
to figure this out.
Okay.
So he's all, he agrees, so.
And you said the downs are okay in that, it's the ups that you're worried about. But how do you come to the middle of it, you know, how do you go from that down to that up and not have it go
yeah.
that far?
I'm no genius, but I think the real problem is from the down to the up
Yes,
of this,
that-
and
that
that
whole
is
range.
the right. That's the
Yes.
problem.
Yeah, so there was a 20-pound drop as well.
Right. So if
But
you do
that's just the pressure drop, so you should see the, not like together.
right.
So usually the drop is here, and then you get the rise because the truck filled up, so then you get the rise right after.
Yeah.
But when you have the down, how can you not expect an up?
If you go slow enough, you won't.
You
I
right.
understand it's low enough.
Or at least back up to static,
Right. You're gonna have an
not
up,
above static.
but it's the up above.
Yeah.
Can't
That's
move the truck until
So-
the hose is disconnected,
Yeah,
and
so
you can't
when we flush
disconnect the
hydrants,
hose.
Until they
we'll
shut it
find out.
down, so you
Right.
can shut it down as.
as you can be.
You
It
got
just
another
I'm not gonna-
3,000
we
gallon
don't
tanker
ever
right behind it.
pull all the water.
Yeah, and you got
But when you shut 'em-
400 feet of pipe
Oh, yeah,
just
we're
full of
slow,
water.
it's gate valves,
Yeah.
and we're slow, we have no
Yeah.
pressure relief valves,
Yeah.
we have none of that. We just have a gate valve, and we go slow. And then, sometimes we'll put a gauge on the hydrant, so you can actually watch the gauge. You do a little crank, you can watch the gauge go up, and then you can see it gradually drop down. So you can see the stuff.
So, you know, that may not be a bad idea to show somebody like this is how we shut down a hydrant and show them that procedure just like what you're talking because maybe I don't know, maybe they
Shutting down is not
gonna be
a
starting
problem.
flushing
It's
soon,
the
so
initial,
take
when
them
you're
out.
trying to get the water initially right away, that's where,
Open it has no problem,
no,
just shut it.
opening's the problem.
They're both,
Both.
but, well, it depends which, like, when you open the hydrant, the hydrant's empty.
Yeah,
So you don't wanna fill it very quickly, you wanna let the air out, get the thing
well,
fill
yeah,
out.
but it should only
and then
take
you
10
go.
seconds to fill a hydrant, right?
10's okay.
Yeah, so I'm saying, crank it, let it fill up, and then
Then
and
they
open it up full
on-
blast
in
and
the
feed it
case-
to the
In the
truck.
case on Lancaster Ave, it was after the hydrant opening probably wasn't the issue. It was the speed in which once you started feeding that 800 feet of 4-inch line.
Right.
You don't realize in just a short distance of 4-inch line, how much water you actually use. We tried to run the deck gun off of an engine that was there. They barely got the water to the tip and ran out.
Really?
Like, we didn't have anything.
Well,
So,
that pressure
and
for the-
those things run, I don't know, 800 to 1,200 gallons on a truck.
So the deck gun runs off the hydrant, not off the pump.
No, ran off the pump. Ours ran off we had to have a pump next to it because there's no pump on our ladder. So we
So the
had to-
pump didn't keep the deck gun working?
Nope,
You gotta get the water to the.
you gotta get the
to
water
pump.
to it.
So the 4-inch friction, that's why we run 12-inch mains. There's so much friction loss with the water. has
Any
to come
report
back
from
in.
how they're doing,
Yeah.
the guys?
All right.
There's a lot to it.
I thought I saw
just
one of
wanna
them.
keep
I'm
the
sure there is,
communications
yeah.
open and the guys are trying.
Yep,
So, and they don't, the guy on the pump doesn't see your end, and the guys that were doing the pumping weren't newbies. These are guys that have definitely pumped before. They know exactly what they were doing, and I don't think they've done anything different than what we used to do.
We're going to hopefully find a way to address this where everybody gets to continue on business as usual.
Yeah,
that would
and,
be nice.
Okay,
Anything else? Christie?
Nope.
Public comment?
Unitil's gonna change your electric meters. We just got a notice.
Thanks,
I
Paul.
think they have been
How's
out.
that?
This is
I
a
think
water
they did
meeting.
have-
we have electric
I thought I
meters.
enlightened the meeting a little bit. But Mark, we do the drills on Monday. Maybe you
done
can do,
and headed
you know,
out.
That's the chief could figure out
Yeah.
when we can do it, and there's staff during the day that sometimes, they could try to do it then, so.
should I make my motion
Oh, you should.
to adjourn? Okay,
All those in favor? Aye.
okay, fellas,